All right. So this week we're going to get into the subject of coaching.
Yes.
But into some real specifics.
Yeah. Yes. We need not to redefine, but I think we need to define basically coaching, what it is, what it entails, right? I think a lot of the problem comes is we call ourselves coaches, meaning trainers. And how do you define trainer? The only time you see defined is in movies or stuff like that, which is usually not in a good light, right? Most of the time we don't see trainers are functioning members of society. Let's put it this way, right? You're a bartender, you're an actor, and
was it Ben Stiller in Dodgeball? That
it was still one of the best movies ever. But yeah, in the global, that's where Global Gym comes from. By the way, it comes from that movie. Yeah.
But I think one of the things we want to make sure that we're going to go through today is like we're going to map out the almost like levels, if you will, but more or less like what you can expect to see kind of at each step along the way.
Yeah, well, because I think again, like trainer, like there's no progression. So the only progression out there really is if you go through the academics ranks, right? You get your master's, you get your PhD, and that's basically how you define the course of a trainer. The problem with that, I think, is that if you're a movement guy, right, the guy who's on the ground, how do you define where you are? So, you're in that limbo, like Jiu-Jitsu has belts.
Yeah.
Right. So but we're like jiu-jitsu teachers, dance instructors, right? How do you know where you are? So you're just a trainer. So they do that ballet, the guys, we're all the same. And again, we're not seen in a good light, which first of all, to me, is the greatest sin of all, because we do more good for everybody than anybody else out there, right? But there's really no definition of coaching. No, even for us now, to know what coaching means, where are we as coaches? What's the next step? What do I need to work on? Most things, like you go dance, you go martial arts, you know exactly what you need to work on next. As a coach, what do you work on next, and where do you go for that?
Yeah.
And those are big issues. And because a lot of people we see seminars and everything, it's the same thing. You can tell the passion, you can tell the drive, but how do you become a great coach, by the way?
Reps, practice.
I know, but practice of what?
That's the tricky part.
That's the thing.
Right?
So what? You're going to coach for 20 years, that makes you a great coach? No, it doesn't.
Always,
you can just spar for 20 years jiu-jitsu and still suck. You can, I mean, like you see it in many sports where people 5 years in, they still suck. Right? Because they didn't practice correctly. They didn't do the actual work smart. So it's the same thing for a coach. What do you do reps? But if there's nothing new to learn, if there's no one pushing you or, something to strive toward, how long before you do the reps in a non-interested way?
Yeah.
When you go like,
or you don't know that there is anything else. That's what's tough.
Exactly, and that's where we're going to talk about, because I think there's a few pitfalls along the way where you can stay exactly where you are for the next 10 years thinking you're getting better, but actually you're not, because you got stuck in the wrong way, basically.
And I think it's important for, even as someone who's being coached, if you're an athlete or a regular person who's paying a fitness coach or of any kind, really, to know that,
that too.
That you're probably not walking in the door dealing with a black belt coach. Very rare, but I think it's important for you as an athlete to know, like, to be able to see maybe this progression as well in your coach, so you can kind of know, all right, this guy is moving forward, he is here. You can you'll be able to know where they're at.
It's okay not to be a black belt coach, because no one started as a black belt.
Yeah.
We all started in the same place, which is a white belt, right?
Yeah.
The question is, are you putting in the work toward black belt?
Yeah.
Right, because that's the difference between, like, we'll talk about this, but like you see most people in jiu-jitsu quitting as blue belts, because there is that transition where you need to become yourself, right? You're going to stop being just a guy who repeats, and you find your own game. And that's hi honey, you can come and say hi to the camera. That's my daughter. That's the hardest moment in your life as a coach, and it's very easy to not do it.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're going to talk about this, but there's so you don't have to be a black belt, and certainly you won't start there. But I think if we could define coaching better, it would help us legitimize what we do in the same way like jiu-jitsu has, or martial arts or stuff like that. That's what the belt system is there for. It's not just, but you know why you're a black belt, by the way? So I don't know if He might be a legend, but the way it was explained to me is back in the day, it was in Japan. You start with a white belt, and as the sweat gets deposited onto the belt, it turns to brown and then into black. So it was black of sweat. So it might be a legend, but it defines.
I like it.
Exactly, I like it too. That was to prove the amount of work that you put.
Yeah, and I think the word you used too is legitimize for trainers. Like I think that's
it's so important.
Like the general consensus out in the world is that a lot of coaches, especially maybe it's the vibe of just the Ben Stiller and dodgeball Globo gym.
My grandfather, when I was alive, thought I was doing bodybuilding. It's like literally conversation was like, so you still do bodybuilding? I was like, yes, that's what I do. Sure. Yeah. So it's a global. We've seen as the global gym guys, and it's thick in the muscle, but not in the head.
Yeah.
And it's all that stuff. And I think where I see the most is I see a lot of coaches that look at themselves as they're like poor man's physios. Yeah. This physio, they're not as good, but they would like to be. And that's what the job is so you go from basically the progression, I see it in many people, is you go from teaching movement to being a physio. That is so wrong. That is not the same job.
Yeah, they're just
not at all.
That's the thing, is it's not underneath, they're really more adjacent to each other.
It's not the same job.
It's just a totally different purpose.
Job. And by the way, I don't need, John Machado does not have a PhD in exercise physiology or exercise science or strength and conditioning or anything. And he was the greatest jiu-jitsu coach I had. None of the greatest dance instructors, the greatest jiu-jitsu teachers, the greatest coaches in general do not necessarily have a PhD. One has nothing to do with the other. You don't learn to swim on the table. Yeah. So this comes from the work being done on the mat and all that stuff. And you don't need a PhD for, I mean, like my problem is that idea that trainer is the bottom of the pack, and then from there you move to smarter people, which are physios or chiropractors or PhDs or people that work on pieces of paper, and that's wrong. That's wrong because again it legitimizes all the trainers out there, making them feel like what you do is shit, which is not true. Mm-hmm. I have the most respect and the most love for the people training the 99%, the grandmas, the Michael Mann, who he'll never be shiny, there'll never be an ovation in the stadium with everybody clapping and the confettis. You won't necessarily train a guy who will be a world champion and say your name on TV on ESPN, right? My love goes to the guys making the grunt work and making humanity fitter.
Exactly.
And that's the hard job because there is no confettis, there is no Olympics, your name won't be on ESPN, but you're the one actually doing good.
Well, I think it's because our goal as trainers, granted there's some sort of progress from sickness to wellness in there, but I do think we want actual health, not just a lack of fucking sickness.
And the medical profession deals with symptoms, with dysfunction.
Yeah.
We are the one that take from where we want people better. If you look at medical world, it's dysfunction to normal, whatever they call normal, by the way. We are the one who go to normal to better.
Yeah, like that's exactly it. I don't want you to be not sick. I want you to be awesome. Like it's a pretty easy place to be.
Right, exactly. But we're the only one doing that.
Yeah,
right.
Definitely.
And if you look, and it's not the stuff on paper, it's not the PhDs, it's us on the ground going like teaching person to count squat to like, because you blow up your knee. You go through physio and everything. The idea is you're going to be able to walk like 150 feet outside of the door of the office, right? Or you have a range of motion or whatever. I'm like, okay, so now you can do one air squat. All right, so medically speaking, you can squat, you're out, right? And then the work comes to us who are like, no. Now I want you to squat 100 kilos, right? So we are the one doing the work. Like, I'm not discarding all the medical world, by the way, because we need that as well, obviously. Like after surgery, trauma, all that needs to be treated. But then there's the other part, which I believe is just as important, right? Which is us getting people from whatever the fuck is factory setting that they already established to let's get you to a place where I think you will be a productive human being.
And let's go through what that progression is going to look like for a coach.
So I'll use the jiu-jitsu belts because that's the easiest way. So the first one is a white belt, right? So
white belt, and we're going to consider that really anybody from day one, once they transition from an athlete to maybe inquiring more, learning more. Like this is as rudimentary as it can be. Now, I think a lot of people, if you think of being coached by someone that maybe is a white belt, What the negatives to that would be? What? Lack of experience.
Lack of experience.
Lack of tools in the toolbox.
I think the good and the bad get mixed in a one soup, in the sense of the biggest power of a white belt is that he'll try shit. He doesn't know he's not supposed to. So you see that on the mat all the time, where the guys turn the wrong way, spin, do crazy shit, and sometimes you get rattled by it because you go like, why would you do that? Like, but there's a power to it, right? Because you're trying stuff, you're trying shit, and if you don't try, you don't discover anything new anyway, right? So there's a power to that. But there's also a downside to that, is sometimes you're going to run yourself into a wall, which we all been through many times. So you're going to see injuries, you're going to see stuff you shouldn't be playing with, but you don't know because you're a white belt. And you'll end up hurting yourself and hurting people. And by the way, hurting people, we don't want to hurt anybody ever, but it's going to happen.
Yeah.
You will make mistakes as a coach. And I think to be a great coach, you have to understand that you have to be able to take the punches, right? You're going to hate yourself for it, like I did, but you have to be able to move on, because your people will be okay with that. As long as you say, I made a mistake, can I fix it, please? They will accept.
Yeah.
I know it sucks, but you're going to make mistakes. People will get hurt, you will make mistakes. I look back at how I taught the deadlift early or stuff like that. So many mistakes I made. So many. I'm still wrong on a bunch of stuff, and then I correct as I go.
And just like when you talked about deadlift, like, it doesn't even necessarily mean that you lack the technical expertise at the time to teach that movement. What it was is sometimes as a white belt, you just don't understand how to get that point out of your head and into someone's body.
That's very true.
That takes
because you
time.
Started as an athlete, right? So you know.
Yeah.
But they don't.
Yeah.
And to you, it's just saying like, but you stand up with a weight. Yeah. Like you see that a lot, right? Squat, you just come down and up, man. What are you? So you'll see white belts, that's a typical stuff, where they do what they're good at, and what they're not good at doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Because you go on instinct, and you go like, I know that, so that's what I'm going to do. So you see them a lot when they coach people, coaching them what they know, or what they do well.
Yeah.
Like I do well at thrusters, all my clients are going to do thrusters. Right? Because it's about you. That's a typical white belt, because you're trying new shit. By the way, you're super excited. You just started, you're full of optimism, you still love people. And it's awesome, right? And I love to see the passion.
What's the biggest temptation as a white belt, I think, and this is, like we said, it's good and bad, is to see something coaching-wise, programming-wise, movement-wise that you think, oh, that looks fucking cool.
That's you.
All right, everybody, we're gonna try something new that I just saw on the internet.
Exactly. Like you see
that does become risky. Like your filter between what, we're not able to really pour over this information that we're seeing as a white belt. You're like, I don't know, that looks neat. I guess I just have to try it.
You know the difference between a white belt and a black belt is what you watch on YouTube. The white belt will watch Marcelo Garcia, the best guys in the world, and be amazed by how they move their hips and the stuff and everything, and be like, oh my God, this looks so cool. I need to try that triple loop axle reverse
the
heel
most
hook.
Complicated shit.
Yes, shit. Whereas the black belt will look at how the guy passed the guard, the knee was here instead of there, and then he put his foot this way, and they'll all go, wow. And the white belts are like, oh yeah, he spit in the air. Where the black belt was looking at the foot being there. That's how you know the difference.
Yeah.
And by the way, all white belts only look at the UFC and the World Championship and everything. They never look at instructional videos for white belts. You know who does? Black belts.
Yeah.
Because they're curious to see. So that's how you know who's a white belt. They never look at the video instruction for white belts.
That's highlight reels.
Always. That's all they look. Well, by the way, and I all love to those guys. All love to all coaches, but all love to white belts. Like they're full of passion. I love because you can tell it's coming from inside, and they love what they do, which is awesome. And
I think that transition from not coaching to maybe that white belt stage is probably the most. Everything else that we see as we go through, there's small changes. They're all important, but I think that becoming a white belt coach is like that change when you actually
and the
learning curve is so steep.
Yep.
You're just going to do it like that. I think is the most ambitious and it makes me feel very good to see human beings that take that on.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I don't fucking know anything. I'm just going to do this in hopes that I can get good enough. And I got to try to start helping people now.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be as good at it now as I'm
know
going to
that.
be in 2 years. But I just fucking have to start.
And the energy they put into it is awesome.
Yeah, because it's borders. It's so misguided and it's all over the place.
And it's awesome.
But it is all consuming.
But it's, to me, that's why I love seeing it. I mean, don't get me wrong. Half the time I'm like, oh my God.
You're like, I'd prefer you be better, but I like your enthusiasm.
Let me change this. But at the same time, seeing that energy, because we lose it over time.
Yeah.
Because you have more experience.
Yeah.
So you're like, yeah. You're less excited in general, going like, yes, I get it. Like he can break parallel. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But
the things that excite you change.
Yeah, but then they get fucking excited.
Yeah.
At everything. The guy did a pull-up and then can't sleep for a week.
And
That's awesome.
I was there.
Like sometimes I know. Sometimes I'm like, man, where did I lose it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as someone, the other thing with white belt is almost no ego at that point.
Yes.
That's a pretty humble coach.
Yes, they're willing to learn. They're willing to learn, and that's awesome. That they won't throw at you 6 studies that said differently. They won't spend 3 hours on the internet. Or if they do, they come say, coach. I saw someone say that on the internet. You go, no, that's stupid. Okay. You know what I mean? Instead of, but I have a study that tells me that what you're saying is wrong. Because,
Yeah. And I think that's good. And now as we evolve, the next step is kind of the...
There's no dogmatic view either, usually as white belts, by the way.
That's true, yeah.
They're not there yet.
The only time I ever see any dogmatic view from white belt coaches is actually stuff they bring into coaching with them.
Yes,
I don't think they learn that
yeah.
in coaching. It's always something before. They had something in their background that they maybe stay attached to.
Those are moral values that they have usually.
Exactly.
Yep.
But otherwise, for the most part, you're just there as a sponge.
Yeah.
If someone progresses on, blue belt would be next.
Blue belt will be next. So blue belt is the most crucial time in your career as a coach, because that transition from blue to purple is the hardest thing you're going to do. So white to blue is great. You get your first notch, then you get the blue belt, like you're all proud. You're starting to understand jiu-jitsu. You don't understand jiu-jitsu yet, but you're starting to understand. At least you see the mountain. Mm-hmm. Right? Jiu-jitsu is a mountain that nobody can see fully. As a white belt, you don't even know there's a mountain.
Yeah, you just know you got to go up.
You just go forward. Yeah, exactly, forward, because you're like, armbar triangle. What's there to know? That's it. That's all. Like that. Watch the highlight reels. That's all they do is armbar and triangle. That's it. Like, oh yeah, that's easy. You don't even know there's a mountain, right? Yeah. Blue belt, you start to go, oh shit, the mountain is big. But at least you see it. So that's a progress, right? That's also where you'll see most people quit, because you start to climb the mountain and you go like, that's a big fucking mountain, and I'm going an inch at a time. Mm-hmm. Shit, how long is that going to take?
Yeah.
That's a hard place. And so this is the time where I say the most crucial time, and this is also the hardest, I think, right? Because you're starting to understand you don't know shit, right? You have no clue as a white belt.
It's so easy. It's so much easier to just think you know everything for a little while.
And as a white belt, you don't even care.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Yeah, you're not
giving a shit. Yeah, so you're like, I saw that, and we're gonna all try. And so now you start to go, oh my God, there's. And the shiny stuff go away, right? It's like all the guys that join as white belt to be in the UFC, now they blue belt, and they get tapped 2,000 times. They get literally tapped 10 times a session. And the black belts are so far past where they are. You go like, I'm never going to be able to do this. This is ridiculous. And this is 80 years. I have to spend the next 8 years doing this just to get there. And you get the living shit beat out of you on every training session, and everybody's better than you. And that's a very hard time. And you see it. And it's a time where memorization, in a way, has to happen. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, that's the hardest thing you can do on someone. Where so for coaches, is we establish the rules of what a squat is and what a deadlift is and stuff like that, but it doesn't work. Yeah. Right? It's like, that's how you squat, but my client can't do it, or I can't do it, or whatever. So we establish all those rules that are basically memorization based, so that you don't kill anybody.
Yeah.
But at the same time, those rules don't necessarily work. Do you
think it's still important to start with that, though?
Yeah.
I mean,
to a degree.
So I remember, I think, because Greg and I had talked about that a little bit with some of the stuff with the mentoring program, and how, like, gosh, what order do we want, right? Because there's that just playing, and then there's memorization. And there has to be a mix of the both.
I think it's a lot like parenting. As long as your kid doesn't end up in the morgue, in the hospital, or in jail, you're good.
Yeah, right.
So don't break somebody's neck.
Yeah.
Right? Don't blow up his knee. Know when to tap. Know when the guy taps to let go. We need to establish.
So at this point, we're kind of getting a really good fundamental understanding of just the rules a little bit.
The rules. And
the ones maybe you don't ever break. Like
that, and then the second thing we introduce is how are things supposed to look? What are you supposed to do with this? So on a squat, like you can't let one guy slouching on the bar because he's going to kill himself. So we start to establish all the stuff that cannot happen. The problem with that is just because they cannot happen this way does not mean correcting that means they're squatting correctly. So what do I mean by that? Someone crouches on the bar and looks like this. So what you're going to do as a blue belt, chest up.
Yeah.
Everything is fixed.
Yeah.
Because you didn't do that. So it's a lot of don't do that, but at the same time, this is how you do it. They're not ready. They're not there yet. Right?
It's very surface level stuff.
Right. So that's what I call a t-shirt coaching, where it's knees out, chest up. Oh, you look good in that color. Yeah. What you're trying to make people do is look good while they exercise, or at least not look like they're going to kill themselves, which is important because you don't want them to make those mistakes.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between them not making those mistakes and them moving correctly. So too many times at that level, I see coaches that are basically trying to get people to look a certain way. And so for that, they need cues. And so they scout the internet for highlight reels of cues. Knees out, chest up, not understanding what that means really because they're not there. And by the way, I say that again with all the love in my heart. I know exactly where they are. I was there too. Takes years and years and years to get out of that. But it's a lot of cues-based coaching. That's why I call it the t-shirt coaching, because you're trying to make like good in blue.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that t-shirt looks so good on you.
And it becomes
puff up your chest.
I think that the temptation at this stage is it can become very impersonal because it is very much external. It's about what things should look like.
And then this is where the ego starts as well, where you're not a white belt anymore. So, yeah, I'm not a white belt anymore, right? So I'm not going to make the same mistakes. I'm not going to try anything anymore. I'm just going to apply what I've been taught.
Yeah. And depending on where people come from, you know, I notice this anytime someone comes up from a place of maybe knowing less and moves up one, there's some traps to be had there or to be fallen into there sometimes. I remember working just as an apprentice long ago, 15 years ago, and I remember knowing people who, the guys that they worked under, these old timers that they learned under for 5-6 years, were fucking assholes. They made them do the worst work. The guys themselves were lazy and didn't do shit. And they just made the
new guys do it. Yeah.
And then so you come out of that, you have a 50-50 shot. So you come out of that either thinking, all right, as soon as I level up, I ain't doing shit.
Yeah, exactly. I'm doing the same thing to those poor kids.
Everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the other side is you determine that, like, all right, when I move up, I'm going to be better than what
I'll never be that guy. And that's really what the blue belt level is to decide where you're going. Right? So now you have enough taste of it, enough experience to know that there is a mountain. Right? You're not the white belts going, So you still love what you do, you're still addicted to it, but you realize how many mistakes you're making. Yeah. Right? You realize there's so many people ahead of you, and the mountain is a big fucking mountain. This is going to take time. And so it's the greatest realization, and it's also the hardest, because now what?
Do you think this is the point where you feel the most pressure as far as to learn at this point?
Indirect pressure, I would say the problem that I see on that one. Can I stand up? Are we good on cameras?
We're probably fine.
It's going to be like right there.
No, I think I got it.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not a professional. So.
But the angle is wide.
This one will catch you always.
This is where it's so dangerous, because if there's no one to guide you toward black belt, then you're going to think that's the job, is being a t-shirt coach, and all you're going to do from there on is try to sell a nicer t-shirt.
Yeah.
A lot of coaching that I see as blue belt is selling stuff. Hey, again, chest up, oh, you look so much better. And you see it in the words that they use. Man, you killed the workout today. You look so much better. See, like your knees don't cave in anymore. They always talk about how the person looks, like they're selling a fucking t-shirt.
Yeah.
And from there, they can go on to selling a nicer t-shirt and a nicer t-shirt and a nicer shade of blue. And, you know, it's like, oh, lose 5 pounds, you look better. Maybe we can get a bit more shoulder. Maybe we can do this. Maybe like, oh, look, I have a better programming. Instead of 83%, we're going to do 86%.
Yeah.
You basically end up selling a nicer t-shirt instead of moving on to the next belt. That's and so if there's no black
you can
belt.
be stuck there for a long time.
Forever.
Yeah.
Forever, because again, now your ego starts to develop, because now you go, no, I know there's a mountain.
Look at all these wonderful t-shirts we got.
Yeah, and by the way, it's true, you know there's a mountain. The problem is you haven't climbed it yet.
Yeah. And
right?
and I think like you said, once you get to the point where you mentioned like selling a t-shirt, all right, that looks great. Good job.
By the way, you start to make money because you're selling t-shirts now.
Yeah, you're doing
White
good.
belt, you're making shit.
Yeah.
You're getting the living. By the way, you don't even spar.
And the people you're working with don't know any better. As a
Because
blue belt,
most of
they
them
don't know that there's a
most
problem.
of them are blue belts.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, white belt.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
The people
yeah.
you're coaching.
Oh, you're coaching? Yeah, they don't know. No, because you're a blue belt.
Yeah,
You're better than white belt.
yeah, and
That's all that
most
matters.
people
Yeah.
out there are not.
Yep.
You know, so but I think I'm trying to think of how to put this the best way. But you start to say, okay, oh, that looks great, and then you're going to pick maybe a more specific thing to point out next time, but it's still very surface level. Oh, let's get the elbow here. Okay, good.
That's still a
And
nicer
then-
t-shirt.
Exactly, and
It's
you
still a
still
nicer
just keep
t-shirt.
going further, and you can go in that direction,
And you know,
and never come back.
Like not knowing any different, the reason comes is blue belts only spar with blue belts. Why? Because they can fight. You know, as blue belts, they're all roughly the same level. So obviously some are better, but you know, like they still have a chance. Black belt, they don't even know what the fuck is happening.
Yeah.
They just know they're gonna lose. There's no hope. They
Yeah.
don't even understand what they're seeing, which is a problem. And this is where why a blue belt should spar with a black belt. What they should do is spar with a black belt and look at what the black belt is doing to them and say, I want to repeat that. Let me look what the game is, how he got me in such a bad position so I can do that to the next guy. Fail 10 times, but by the 11th going like, hey, that actually works.
Yeah.
That's how you learn.
And then you might figure something out.
That's how you learn.
Yeah.
The problem is, as blue belts, and so was I, by the way. I'm not, again, this is not a criticism to anybody because I did exactly that and I was the thickest headed guy there is. It took John Machado choking me 3,000 times before I was like, all right, maybe I should protect my neck. So again, all love for everybody, but that's the problem is you only spar with blue belts because you want to win. You want to beat people up because remember, you're going to the UFC.
Yeah.
So you want to beat people up because it crushes your ego to go with a black belt who basically is laughing in your face at the shit, at the mistakes you make, the stuff you don't do. And it crushes your, not your soul, but it crushes your ego. That's what a blue belt is getting your ego crushed on a daily basis.
I think that's probably the most important part, right? I don't think you move on. I think you can go the ego, nicer t-shirts
Selling
route,
t-shirt, yeah.
and then you will not progress, in my opinion.
You'll get stuck.
Until both of those things get corrected.
There's a world champion.
And it's easy to keep going down that direction.
There's
That's
a
the
guy,
problem.
MMA, who was saying like he gets submitted 3 to 5 times per training session. Dude, he's a world champion. And he's like, you think you have an ego? I get submitted 5 times a day.
Yeah.
So imagine him saying that. The problem is as a blue belt, this is so hard.
I remember it's one of my favorite, I think it was maybe a Rogan podcast episode, but they had Josh Barnett, former heavyweight,
Yep.
UFC heavyweight champion. Overall, just a real bad motherfucker.
Yes.
You know, just great.
And a big one too.
Older now, big, yeah. Like, and I think he said he ran into a guy at a concert one time. Some guy bumped into him, and some drunk guy was going to try to start a fight with him. And Josh is already big.
Yep.
And I think he said, listen, you don't know anyone who knows anyone who knows anyone who knows anyone whose ass I can't kick.
Yes.
Okay. You just need to call it right now, and I think that's I just thought that was
a good way. That's a good way to put it, by the way. It's very
in his
true.
case, yes.
Yes.
Not a lot of people can say that.
No, that's for sure.
But in his case, that's the truth. But he even said that he said, you know, he's like, I get tapped in training all the time. That's the point of training.
And that is the
Practice.
difference between the blue and the black. So a black belt will look for people better who can tap him. A blue belt will look for people he can beat.
Yeah. And in that same conversation, I think he had said that one of the things he'll do is like, of course, if we're just going to start, he can smash the person he's going against. So what's he do? Puts himself in a disadvantageous
Always,
position.
yeah.
solves the problem.
Tries to learn.
Doesn't always get it.
Exactly, tries to learn. So this is where you'll see the blue belts coming up with the studies and all that stuff, because they want to win. They don't want to learn. They don't want to have a conversation. They want to win the fight.
Yeah, you don't want to learn what's right. You want to be right.
Yeah, exactly. So you'll come up with studies, which is not that hard to do on the internet. There's always a guy saying yes, always a guy saying no, just so you can be right. Yeah. So you can, I mean, but you're looking for other blue belt to beat up on because you need to win, because your ego is getting challenged on a daily basis, and it's not easy. And so to me, that's the most crucial time there is. T-shirt coaching, though, is not coaching. A blue belt, you still don't understand jiu-jitsu. You see the mountain, but you're not climbing it yet. Yeah. And so that's why, to me, it's the hardest time. But this is where vocation is forged. It is where the steel that you'll need later on is forged, is as a blue belt, getting your ass kicked every single training session. And like at least a black belt, you got tapped, but you know what happened.
Yeah.
As a blue belt, you don't even fucking know. Sometimes you're in position, suddenly you go like, what happened? I don't even, how did I get there? I was fine 2 seconds ago. Yeah. You don't even know you're in danger.
Yeah. So we're gonna go on the assumption that the blue belt comes in, they course correct, they play a little game with the t-shirt coaching, they figure out there's more to it than that. Ego softens a little bit, and then they kind of move on to the purple belt.
The purple belt. Okay, so purple belt to me was in a way the most, well, maybe not the most fun there was. It was a time of the greatest revelation about, I think that's when I realized what jiu-jitsu was, right? And it's the time when you find your game, right? And your game is very important because it will be a handle that allows you to lift more weight. It's what do I mean by that? It's a lens that allows you, through that thing, you'll be able to see the whole mountain. So I did not understand jiu-jitsu until I found my half guard, because I did not understand leverage. I was fighting my way on everything, forcing it, using my natural talent and my strength and all that stuff. When I found my half guard, and I was like, that sounds like a, because again, you're trying to find your game. So there's a moment where I was just repeating techniques as a blue belt, right? I was told this, so that's what I do. And then I was like, yeah, but you know, like you start to have those clashing things where you realize, yeah, but I need something that is mine. Yeah. If that makes sense, right? I have to stop. I'm just repeating. Like you need to find your own game, right? And then the half guard was something I was like, ooh, that's an interesting concept. So what I did is I took a friend of mine who was like 330, like, you know, humongous, but I put him in my half guard and I can't move him. I'm like, huh. So then I said, can you please stay like this? Okay, so when I do this, how do you feel? Do you think, no, but I was like here. I said, oh, here, I feel more in balance. What about when I do this? And I started to work every inch.
I can't move you, but do you feel a little off balance?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
I swear. Yeah. And I did that for 6 months until I could sweep him every time.
Yeah.
But literally, so I asked him, and he was so nice, because 45 minutes, an hour at a time, I was like, dude, what about this? He didn't know jiu-jitsu, just barely, but enough to go like, I'm not off balance right here. And I was like, nah, I'm not moving you. I was like, why? What about when I do this? Can you put your weight? Here I feel it, here I don't, because you know, 330 on you is crushing you. I was like, I can't be in this position. I'm going to die. So I was like, I learned to posture on my elbow. So I learned the half guard. And by doing that, it gave me the understanding of what jiu-jitsu was. It was like, it's not fighting, it's not force against force, it's getting away from it, otherwise you get crushed.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's about being not where the guy is not. Okay, so then it's about leverage. Oh, so that's how you sweep someone. You just don't force it, you just go in a place where, and then that gave me, and then suddenly out of that, I was like, oh, so that's what an armbar means. And now I started to learn about jiu-jitsu by finding my own game.
Yeah, and it becomes less a technique and more a series of choosing which door to open, which one to close on the fly.
Exactly, but you're going to have to open the first one. Yeah. Because as a blue belt, you think you can learn you can memorize all techniques, and that's not true. No. Right? It's not true at all, because the technique is not something you remember; it's something you do. It's instinctual. Once you've done it enough, you don't do a technique. You understand the position.
Yeah.
The position has a spirit. It's designed for something, to create a certain imbalance, to create certain things you're going to take advantage of. So each position has a spirit. Once you understand the spirit, you don't need to memorize, it's there. You're in the position. So you play it like it's instinctual, it's natural because you're within the position. Right? So you don't need to memorize anymore. If you have to think, I need to put my leg there, it's too late.
And your options are limited at that point anyways, you know, based upon where you are.
Because you're within the position.
Yeah.
right? So there's no memorization there anymore. So you need to feel a position. That means that you need to go from a place of memorization to how do I feel in this position? Me, not my coach who's doing it perfectly, me, because I don't feel good.
Yeah.
So now you're gonna have to work out every inch going like this, no, this, yes, this, no, this, yes. And that's a very hard thing to do. But at the same time, you start to understand the jiu-jitsu. So the door opens and you go, oh my God, there's an entire universe I knew nothing about.
Yeah. And it's, I think at that point in coaching.
So for coaching.
When we get to here, I think when we mentioned find your own game, that is, to me, it sounds to me like one, now your tools, your options as far as coaching, not just cues, but like the things you're seeing, you're doing, literally your entire repertoire of answers to these questions, these physical questions that you're having is growing, right? And then your ability though to communicate that now becomes your style of communication. And it's very different from that blue belt style where it's chest up, chest here, because that's not anyone's style of communication. That's a textbook.
That's a textbook, which is your teacher as a blue belt, right? So like as a blue belt, you repeat what your coach has said. What the black belt says do that, that's what you do. And if someone ever says, no, that's not how I've been told. Like that's how you hear those sentences all the time. That's not how I've been told. I'm like, okay, but that's not the point, right? And so for a coach also, it comes down to what do you want? Who do you want to be as a coach? That's a hard question, by the way. And I ask it all the time and say, okay, so what do you want? And people are like, what do you mean? What do you want? Who do you want to coach?
Yeah.
That's an important question. What is your color? This is when you find your color, right, that we talked about all the time in StrongFit as a coach, is as a purple belt. And my question to them is like, what do you want to do? But precisely, not a bullshit question like, I want to save the world. And no, like, who do you want to train? Mental illness, anxiety, depression? Not a mental illness, but you know what I mean. Anxiety, depression, bulimia, anorexia. Do you want to deal with people with sexual trauma, with traumatic experiences? Do you want to train athletes that want to go to the Olympics, to the CrossFit Games? Do you want to
just the weight loss route?
Nutrition,
so many things.
Powerlifting, sports. So maybe not the Olympics because powerlifting is never going there.
Never.
Do you want strength, endurance, CrossFit, all of it? Who do you want to be?
And I think it's important too that in looking for those things that you're not actually ever handcuffed to that either. And I think that's important. You still need to have that white belt sense, even as a brown belt, of like, I'm trying shit. And all right, so I'm going to try and see now with this newly evolved form of the skill that I've got now that's much better than it used to be. All right, I'm going to try it in the off season with a softball team. In the off season. Let's see how that goes. And then you're like, and that might click right away. Or it might be like, that was good. I learned some more things. Let me take that into something else. Like, I think there still is in finding your specific game, I think that's when you go almost right back to that trying new things as much as possible.
As I'm a black belt level, right? I never actually got my black belt from John Machado because of a falling out with a business partner in him, but I'm a black belt level. And if I could tell you that on leg locks right now, I'm a blue belt level at best. Maybe a really good white belt or a decent blue belt because I never, we didn't do leg locks. So what I need to do is to find guys that are great at leg locks and go back to blue belt and getting the shit beat out of me for the next 2 years until I learn leg locks, which I would love to do. So that would force me back to learning again completely.
Back into a new skill.
Back into a new skill because I don't know leg locks. It's a whole different idea too because you don't move the same. They spin a lot. It's a whole different game.
And I think this transition, from brown, I don't want to transition to black belt just yet, but when you get to where you're trying new things, you're trying to find out your game, like your style of coaching, where you want to be in the coaching
Do you want to be MMA or Jiu-Jitsu?
Yeah.
But a lot of grapplers move from grappling to MMA. Not everybody does though. Like Marcel Garcia, probably one of the greatest Jiu-Jitsu ever. He tried MMA, got the shit better of him, realized he didn't like it, went back to grappling. Thank God, because he's a genius there, right? But not everybody wants to be an MMA fighter. Someone will stick with grappling. Do you know that about yourself?
And I think because of this, like you said, you got to go back to sucking at something to try something new, to find out if that's going to be.
You're always a white belt somewhere.
Yep. Well, because of that, this is, I think, a point in coaching where there isn't. going to be much for fireworks here because you're not there yet.
And there's no safety net too.
You're a pretty damn good coach.
Yeah, right?
But there's not any, look at the things you're doing. I mean, there's just nobody there is.
And suddenly there's no net, that's the problem when you let go of memorization, is you can't say anymore, my coach said.
Yeah, you're fully accountable at this point.
It's so safe. As a blue belt even, it's safe because you want to fight everybody, you want to be right all the time, so that gives you something to fight to fight for, in the sense of I fight for my teacher because he said so, and basically it's the same thing because you just want to be right. There's a comfort in that.
Yeah.
And so now you're a purple belt, and now it's about finding your own game. When you find your own game, that means it's on you, 100%. You make your mistakes, which means when you're being criticized, they're criticizing you, not somebody else. So it becomes very personal now.
So at this point, somebody gets to where you figured out your style.
What you want to do.
You have to be confident in your style. You can't be winging it at this point.
And this is what you want to do now.
Yeah, you figure out how you talk. You've got good at it. You communicate well.
So now there's more. You're going to specialize into certain things, right? Because blue belt, you try to memorize everything, which you can't. Purple belts, now you start to memorize. Like let's say you want to specialize in weight loss or whatever. Now you start to learn specific stuff toward that. Yeah. And you're starting to get good, right? There's some purple belts that are really good. Yeah. You're starting to get really good at very specific things.
And then so when we transition to the brown belt, what really sets those two apart? So
to me, the biggest difference is, so as a purple belt, you're still trying to teach the squat, right? So you're not knees out, chest up anymore because you realize it doesn't work, right? Yeah. It's still people collapse under the weight and you realize it's a problem. And first of all, who are you going to teach the squat to, right? Because that's a purple belt, you're going to decide who you want to be and what you want to do in your career. So who are you teaching the squat to? Are you teaching it to an Olympic weightlifter versus a powerlifter? Because those are two different, they're still squatting, but technically speaking, they're not the same. There's a different technique. So now you're going to start to be a specialist in, let's say, Olympic weightlifting, right? So now that means you have to squat the Olympic weightlifting way so that you get more toward the other quads and the hips to help toward the jump and toward the triple extension and all that stuff, right? So all your knowledge starts to go toward basically learning specific things better, right? Which is great. So you're still stuck into how to teach the squat though. What a brown belt coach realizes is it's not about teaching the squat. It's about teaching the squat to that person.
Yeah, because knowing the squat at that point needs to be a given. In almost every capacity, you as a coach need to know it, but getting that one person to do it right.
Because the problem is, and this is another dangerous time in your coaching career, is you think there is such a thing as a squat. There is not. The barbell does not move itself. And you're not coaching robots. So who's squatting? The person in front of you. Yeah. And that's the only thing that matters. Because again, like it's not like the squat is that thing and then we plug people into it. That's still the blue belt, purple belt mentality of I'm gonna know what I know, technical, which is in a vacuum, right? When we talk about the squat, the deadlift, it's always in a vacuum.
Exactly.
And I'm gonna plug that person into that vacuum. You're still a purple belt if you do that. Because what you realize as a brown belt is there is no vacuum. The squat and everything, that's the illusion, right? That there is an Olympic weightlifting squat. No, there's a movement pattern. But guess what? Movement pattern by themselves don't exist. The only thing that exists is the person in front of you squatting. That's who is going to have to do that movement pattern. So it's not about the squat and then I plug this person in. It's about that person and then I'm going to try to make him do that movement pattern. So there's a reversal in that sense. And that's the brown belt. So when he spars with someone, it's not about using that sweep. Like you see that a lot even with purple belt. They have that one sweep that they force on
everything.
Yep. Doesn't matter who's in front of them, they're going to do that one sweep. So a brown belt comes in and he goes, that guy, his legs are too long, I can't do that sweep.
And the problem is
but I'm going to use that one.
Is that it works often enough to where you can still get comfortable.
Yeah, and he works really well on blue belts. Yeah. And he works really well on blue belts. That impresses the blue belts a lot. So your ego is like, hey, I can do that sweep, which is true. But there's certain people against whom the sweep won't work because they are shaped differently. And a brown belt will recognize that that sweep is not suited for that person. Therefore, I'm going to need to have another sweep for that particular situation. Yeah. And that's where in coaching, it's not about teaching the squat. It's about teaching that person to squat. So that means that requires you to understand and know the person in front of you. Aha. So now, basically, that means that the squat is not enough. You need to understand people, right? Psychology, like time of the month, depending if it's a woman or a man, right? So because women during their menstruation have a different hormonal levels and everything that changes movement patterns. So now you need to start to understand the nervous system a little bit better, right? Knowing that sympathetic or whatever will change movement pattern. That means someone who's angry will not move the same way as someone who's calm. So it's not about teaching the squat. It's about understanding that I'm teaching the squat to that person. And that's also that moment where you realize that some people cannot squat or should not squat. As a purple, you still force that technique on everyone. And then as a brown belt, you realize, no, not him.
And I think here's when you start to realize some of the rules maybe don't apply.
Not to everybody.
But I also think this point relates as much to the white belt as I see, in that you really have as much coaching fire at this point, because you know that, like, at this point, you know that you don't fucking know anything still.
It's your second white belt. Yeah. Because now you know, this is where, to me, the beauty was as a brown belt, because now I could understand what the black belts were doing, right? Yeah. And I was like, oh, I want that.
You could almost get it.
You just can't do it yet.
Yeah.
But you get it. Yeah. You understand what they're doing. You just can't do it yourself because you haven't. After it's millimeters and you just haven't put the hours in. Yeah. But you get it now. Now you understand jiu-jitsu. You see the mountain and you're halfway through and you go like, all right, you'll never climb the whole mountain, but at least you're on the mountain. And at the bottom, all you saw was the top of the mountain. Now you're at least on the way there. Yeah. You look back, and then you see that beautiful view in front of you, where all the ground that you covered, and the view is fantastic from halfway up the mountain. Whereas at the bottom, it sucked.
Yeah, and I think I've said it before on the podcast too, but if you don't look back at the way you used to coach a year ago, even a year ago, if you look back 12 months and you're not at least maybe a little embarrassed, or you just, God, I really wish I was better, or what the fuck was I thinking? If you don't have those moments when you think about almost everything in your life a year ago, you didn't get any fucking better.
No.
And that's where it's tricky. Like that was.
Yeah, because I still have it.
I remember this as a technician all the time. Every single year, I'd be like, dude, I'm a fucking ace. How long have I been doing this? I'm good.
Yeah.
And then a few times a year, something comes along and you're like, I don't have any idea what this is. The next year comes by and you're like,
how did I know this?
You're like, man, I got all this stuff under my belt. I got it figured out now. That guy last year was an idiot.
It's it's almost the other way around, where I'm always like, how come I didn't figure this out sooner? Like, I remember last year when I said that, Jesus Christ, why didn't I get that already? Yes, why didn't I know then what I know now, you dummy?
Yeah.
And then it's like, how can I make that mistake that was so obvious? And then I tell myself that every time. Every time I look back, I'm like, dude, really? Like, you actually did this?
This close.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did not figure this out.
But at this point, I think a coach is definitely just like on fire to learn, to try, to do.
This was the best time. This was the best time. So now, by the way, you're good at your own game.
Yeah.
Now you're good. Like, it works, right? And you catch the black belts here once in a while, and then you're getting good at this. Like, and this is where you see the guy trains the hardest. Mm-hmm. Is at that moment, because they're like, oh yeah, like, and now the finish line, you can actually see it. It's not like blue belt, we're like, oh, I'll never do this.
So when does the curtain drop and you become a black belt? Like, what is that? What's the main difference between everything that you've accomplished up to that brown belt point and when you become a black belt coach?
So as a brown belt, there is still one thing you have to shed as a belief, is that there is a squat. Mm-hmm. Like, so you're still teaching the squat to that person, but it's still about the squat. So now you understand that it's about the person first and everything, but you're still trying to teach the squat. What you realize as a black belt is there is no, I'm going to use a matrix on that one, there is no spoon. There is no spoon. You're coaching the person.
Yeah.
This is what a black belt coach is the one who's coaching the person, because as a black belt, the first thing you think when you see someone walking in the door is, did your dog die this morning? You don't look that good. What's wrong? And everything. And so a brown belt will start to get to understand that, or even at the lower belt, but it's like, you don't look good. Like, did you have a fight or whatever? Okay, so we're supposed to snatch today. Let's not snatch. I'm going to put you on the bicycle, and then we're just going to talk for 30 minutes while you sweat a little bit, and it's all good. Which is great, because they shouldn't snatch, by the way. So, because their dog died this morning, so at least you did good. A black belt, though, will make a workout that is designed to make them feel better at that moment. So they're not coaching the squat anymore, they're coaching the person. You come in and you go, what you need today is not to squat, what you need is to hinge. Right? What you need is to feel your hammies, what you need is to feel your glutes. Do you feel your glutes? No, let me show you a way. Let's work today on you feeling your glutes. Because if you can't feel your glutes, you can't do the movement pattern that I want you to do. So that's what I'm going to do. So now I'm not coaching the squat, I'm coaching the person. Like I could coach you the squat, but if you squat without your glutes being engaged, you're not squatting correctly.
So it doesn't matter.
So it doesn't matter. So now, instead of teaching you the squat, I'm going to go to what I should have done in the beginning, which is find your glutes. And so you don't teach the squat anymore. There is no spoon.
You're really only working with the person at that point.
With the person. And that means now that you have to understand so much more than before. Like there is almost the philosophy aspect comes in. Now you have to understand the nervous system. You have to start asking questions toward that. You have to understand what makes a human a human. From a biological perspective, psychology and all that stuff, that's where the black belt is.
And this is when, from a movement standpoint, your level of experimentation or whatever preconceived notions you have about any movement has to go out the window at this point.
It's shattered.
It's okay. This now can be whatever I want it to be, whatever I need it to be. I think this is the point where you actually have more blue sky in front of you as a black belt than you do as a white belt.
Yeah, because then you realize there is no squat. Like there is no spoon.
So you start over, and it's no longer just trying to coach a room full of people.
Yeah, and it's suddenly you can squat and you go, what happens when I do this? That's where you come up with a bipolar squat. What happens with put my foot up? Most people are like, no, that's dangerous. You have your one foot is higher than the other. How could you do that? Right? There's no purple belt that would do this, even finding their own game. Or they try once, but they won't work at it consistently, right? That's the difference. So they'll try the shit one day, bipolar squat, like, oh yeah, that was great, that was a different stimulus. Because they still think it's about the stimulus. Whereas the black belt will spend 6 months building that momentum, going like, because why? Because in nature, there are imbalances. You never step on a flat ground in nature. You're on grass, everything is always uneven. You run on a slightly stunted hill. Like this is called actually living in the world, right? Yeah. So instead of being stuck with everything is flat and your feet are straight, and so you create those rules and those measures of control that are an illusion anyway, right? And you get stuck in those until one day you can break free from that fucking structure and go like, who says a squat has to be even? Right? What if I squat with the weight on one side and not the other? But not one time. Let's see if I can build that for 3 months and see what happens, and and more importantly, how is my body going to react? What happens if I do this for 2 months? Mistake, maybe. You go like, yeah, okay, I didn't like it. All right. So, but then once you make the mistake and then you kind of fuck yourself up a little bit, how do you come back from that? Remember, it's not enough not to make the guy not snatch. You have also to find a workout to make him feel better. So once you've done bipolar squat on one side, hopefully both sides, but let's say you do it as an experiment for 3 weeks only on one side. So now you're starting to spasm on that side, okay? How do you come back? You can't just do 2 months on the other side. Is there a way? Because by doing that, you learn how the human body responds to stress and how does your human body work. So now it doesn't become about the squat anymore, it becomes about the human body. What is it that the human body does in that situation? I'm not talking up and down. I'm talking about when the nervous system is being put into this stressful situation, what happens? How do I come back? What is it that I don't know?
And I think when you get to this point, you start to figure out, when I say you, I mean definitely not me, but you start to figure out that there is, I don't even know how to put this. I don't want to drag this explanation out forever.
No, but it's good. Like, imagine you're on top of the mountain, right? You get there, you're a brown belt, you're on top of the mountain, you look and the view is amazing. A black belt now is like, there's a cave over there, there's a hole. Let me see where that goes. Yeah. Because now it's about the mountain. Like, you're done with the view, you want to explore the mountain.
And I think a lot of it is, as you progress, we spend so much time trying to, all right, how do I introduce this stimulus in this way, right? How do I introduce the squat as a white belt to a person? Well, it's going to be, I just need you to move up and down. And as things go, I need you to look this way. And we're worried so much about shaping the stimulus in.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think as we get further along, all we really are after is the adaptation and don't care how we got there at this point.
Yeah, because it's about the person.
Yeah.
So there's a thing is, as a brown belt, you get to the top of the mountain, right? This is what, for the last 10 years, you've been fighting for the view that you get on top of the mountain. Mm-hmm. That's what you've been fighting for. And to be able to look down at people that haven't done the work you have, let's be honest, right? So this is what you fight for. And you get to the top of the mountain, and now suddenly you look at the view and you go like, all right, I want to see down that cave, what's at the bottom of that. Mm-hmm. So can you imagine, you spend 10 years of your life thinking you wanted the view. And once you get there, you realize there are caves to go explore that you didn't even know were in the mountain because you couldn't even see the mountain when you started. Yeah. And now, but that's where the fun part starts, where all rabbit holes coming and you go like, oh shit. But so now you lost the view though, right? So you don't even get to look down at people because you're basically going below them now. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, and then you get to that stage where you become almost like a kid again saying like, I have a question. Because in the middle of that cave, you go like, there's no light, it's fucking dark and I have a tiny flashlight and I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. What is the biggest risk at this black belt point?
I think
as a coach, like what's your biggest trap that you can fall into?
I think it's to get lost in the minutiae of things, of details, of coaching this, and most of the time being so removed from white belts that you forget what they're after. So you know the truth now, right? You know jiu-jitsu, you know what it is, and so what you want to teach them is the spirit of a position, right? And to understand leverage. But you forget, that's not what white belts do. White belts they want to go to the UFC. Right? They're watching highlight reels anymore. If you don't feed them the highlight reels, the cool stuff, then they won't stay. There is no white belt watching instructional video ever, right? They want to see cool stuff. They want to be cool. They want to beat people and everything. But so you come in and you go, no, but that's not what you need to do. And then people will get bored. So the problem is black belts don't stress their white belts enough. What they're asking out of them is an understanding of jiu-jitsu that they can't have, and forget that basically what they should do is make them train safely as hard as they can for an hour so they feel like they're doing the UFC.
Yeah.
That's what the white belt needs. He needs to push the button, he needs the intensity, but the black belt knows better, so he's like, but that's not how you learn. As a brown belt to black belt, no. But as a white belt to blue belt, yes, it is. Yeah. And that's the problem.
Is that you get so disconnected from the people you're teaching just because most of your numbers are going to sit at this white belt. Frankly, I guess if you're coaching, everyone you're coaching is a white belt.
You become Buddha as a black belt. You're like, no, but this is about movement. This is about firing your glutes. Yeah, but guess what? To fire the glutes, you need to put them on a harness sometimes and go whoosh, and stress people and allow them to make mistakes. Because now you become that overseeing father that won't let anybody make mistakes. No, your foot goes here. You need to feel the position. You come that half philosophical bullshit, and then you do, which is great. But you forget that they need to make their mistakes, first of all. And second of all, they need to push the machine. You need to stress people. You need to ask them, more of them mentally and physically. And as a black belt, you're tempted to always go to the concepts and not letting them make mistakes and not like, no, but that's not the right way. But of course it's not the right way, but you have to let them make mistakes and not get frustrated, not show it. And that's where coaching as a black belt is. And people taking 20 minutes to 6 months to figure out something when you go, really? I just explained it to you. Like it takes 3 seconds. For you, it takes 3 seconds, but for them, it might take them 3 weeks. Yeah. And you're like, dude, no, not that one. Yeah. And that's where you fail as a black belt, is when you forget that it takes 6 months to learn that shit. It takes you 3 seconds, but to them it's 6 months. Yeah. And you're like, what are you doing? I just said no. That's where the failure is.
Where in all of this does the risk of burnout escalate to? Because that's kind of our last point on this too. As we get through, we've kind of made this.
Are we already at an hour?
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
But we get all the way through, and we mentioned a lot that blue belt point is where a lot of people drop off.
90%.
And I don't even know if that could be a combination of burnout and just like an overwhelming amount of change is in front of you and behind you. Sometimes it's easy to just stay still and disconnect.
I think they burn out when. For the conversation I had with most people at my seminar, is they basically got convinced, got told that the job was to sell nicer t-shirts. And at some point they realized that that's never what they signed up for. They wanted to help humanity, right? And imagine, because I compared, coaching to priesthood all the time. Like you wanted to be a priest for people, for the salvation of their soul, and you're stuck selling the candles outside of church when they get out of the...
Yeah.
And you're like, but that's not what I signed up for, right? And I feel a lot of coaches feel that, where they went into with the greatest of intention, which is to save people. Well, by the way, and they can. But now they're selling t-shirts that are... They're being shaped into better salesmen of nicer t-shirts. So they're giving a set of skills that don't fit their intent. Because their intent was to help people, and all they got now is give the capacity to someone to have a nicer squat, but still fuck up their back every time. And so I see people my people are getting hurt. What I'm doing with them is hurting them. I don't want that. So who could not burn out feeling that I'm basically putting something out there that is hurting people? So there's that on one side, and the other side is coaching 8 classes a day, where you go so tired that you can't put your soul and your energy, and basically you suck at your job now because you're tired, because no one can coach. Thank you, honey. She just dropped everything everywhere. Yeah,
it's all good.
You can't coach 6 classes a day and not be tired. Coaching is exhausting.
Yeah.
Right? It's so much out of you out there. And so now you know that the job you're doing is not up to the level of what you want out of yourself. So it frustrates you. So between the two, imagine how you feel.
Yeah, and I think the issue is like, you may have thought that selling a better t-shirt style of coaching, you may have thought that is how you get to help people in the way, you know what I mean? And I think that realization where you're like, fuck, this isn't working. I think that's the point where people go, it's almost like an existential crisis.
But imagine like you live in a world of blue belts, right? But deep inside, that's back to the matrix a little bit. You live in a world of blue belts, but deep inside there is such a thing as a purple belt, but you just don't know where they live in an extra dimension.
You don't even know how to get there.
Yeah, they live in an extra dimension. They can see you, but you can't see them. And you're like, I know there's another layer to this. I just don't know where it is. And they keep telling me it's about another t-shirt. I'm like, but it's not that. So you know deep inside you're not going the route you want to run. But there's no I feel for coaches, because many times there is no black belt to teach you what a purple belt looks like.
In coaching, they're almost, you have to seek it out. That's the thing.
Yes, you will have to.
And it may have been a symptom of where, like in the country that I had lived, but even my business partner, he was a coach for 5 years or so, and he had gotten to that point where, same thing, that selling a nicer t-shirt, make it look better, and not because he didn't know what he was doing, it's because that's what he knew. That's all you knew. And
by the way, you have to make money and run a business too. So there is that as well, where you go like, but because as a web belt you struggle, and then you never make money, or like a business owner or stuff like that. And suddenly money comes in, you're happy, you feel you're doing good.
But what he noticed was, as I started working with you, almost immediately, it all, like, things made sense so quickly. Like, we had maybe moved over into this direction where we're queuing positions so much.
Yeah.
We want you to be here, look this, we want it to look a certain way. And as soon as working with you, we started playing with some of these things based on, no, how does the client need to feel when they do this? How does this work when they do this? It made sense because he had more years than I did, quite a few. And so immediately to him, he went, oh Jesus, how did I fucking miss this? All this time, how did I miss this? And that's when he soaked it up like a sponge right away.
Exactly, and that's what saves you from I believe that's what saves you from burning out.
Yeah, because you can tell those coaches who you start to see with enough years, you see the same problems, you see the same drop-off rate, not just injuries, but you see the times with which you can't help people as well as you want, and you don't fucking know why, and that's what's really hard.
And I think it makes you feel like a fraud somewhere. I did. Like at some point I was like, dude, I'm a fraud. don't understand why he's doing this and not that. Like I had success on this and that guy is bonking and he's not doing well and everything. I'm like, I keep pretending that I'm that hot shot but that dude is not getting any of it.
Yeah,
like I'm a fraud.
What am I doing wrong here?
Yeah, I felt like a fraud because I was like, I don't understand people.
And the problem is, as a coach, you have two places you can direct that frustration. That's it. It's either on him, that guy just doesn't fucking get it. Problem is he's paying you to help him get it.
Exactly.
So then the right thing probably is like, what am I doing wrong?
Hopefully you don't blame your client. Or you take it on your spouse.
The problem is when you take that on yourself and that solution doesn't come to you overnight. That time, I think that is when things get hard, and that's when coaches who care a lot, because they care, that's why it hurts so much.
So much, and they need a mentor. This is humanity, right? For the last, 10,000 years, this is how we've been doing it, with a mentor. A guy who's like, dude, I've done it. I went through it. I know exactly what you're going through. You need a higher belt. You need a black belt. You need me with John Machado, who was like, all right, let me explain to you jiu-jitsu, dude. He did it by choking me 3,000 times because he was like, you don't understand. You're fighting everything. Don't fight. Don't get into trouble in the first place. And thank God, he choked me 3,000 times because he finally, started to drip in at 3,500. But that's. By the way, you need a guy who's capable of choking you 3,000 times because he's going to have to prove to you because you're that thick-headed.
Yeah.
Being a punk later on anyway.
I thought you were talking to me. Yeah. Listen, Tyler, you are that fucking thick-headed.
Being that thick-headed, you need someone who can prove to you 3,000 times that you're wrong on this and who gives you guidance at the same time. So he's not an asshole, right? He doesn't wipe up the floor with you. He chokes you saying, see, can you please learn? No? Okay, next time. But every single time trying to teach me. Even though being like this, he's like, no, okay. No, okay. How about now? No, okay. And then so you know what I mean? So imagine what I represent. You need a guy who's good enough to choke you 3,000 times, but at the same time who has the patience to go, I understand, I was there as well. Let me give you my lessons and guide you through that. There's a name for it. It's called a mentor.
Yeah, and I think that
without it, it's hard.
That sums all of it up, pretty much.
Yeah.
Is that if you're gonna progress, you need a mentor. Who knows what they're doing.
You need to seek, and I feel for them because I saw John Machado. I knew the family. I went to pay my $200, and then here he was. Mm-hmm. As a coach, where the fuck do you go? Yeah. There is no school. It's all masters and PhD. Again, there is nowhere for us to go when you want a mentor. It's a hard position.
And now, fortunately, with the internet, we can contact people now.
That's the difference.
You couldn't 20, 30 years ago, you couldn't, if you were a coach.
10, 15 years, yeah.
Like, you just couldn't. And I found it so much. I found it when in opening
See you soon, honey.
In opening a business, in coaching, in everything, what I did, because I learned in my first podcast, how actually nice some people are if you just contact them and are respectful of their time.
And you ask. And you just ask for help. Yeah.
And so, like, I was getting really good business coaching information, all this stuff from fucking all these people who are really good.
But yeah, I didn't.
Well, listen, I only chose to listen to the things that were easiest for me to implement first.
I didn't listen to any of them, so there you go.
But because of that, that's how I found my way to you. That's how all these things end up working. And I think
if you ask nicely, you'd be surprised.
Yeah, but I think for those of you, she got the hockey stick out.
Yeah, you might need the hockey stick. Yeah.
But before we call it a day completely, I think that's the most important thing. If there's somebody you know who is further along than you, who you know has already walked the path that you've walked, you need someone like that.
Yes, and let's put it on people as well to understand that they're going to need to put in the work.
Yes.
John Machado choked me 3,000 times. That means I got choked 3,000 times, and I came back.
There was a really good post I saw this morning from this was Dave Tate from Elite FTS, and he's powerlifting kind of OG. And one of the things that he had said is, everyone, whether you're an athlete, if you your training partner should fall under that mentorship category somewhere.
Yeah.
You either need to be mentoring someone as a training partner, or they need to be mentoring you. Same thing with your coaches. But he said very bluntly, he's like, just contacting someone and asking them questions and information, that's not mentorship.
Exactly.
And mentorship doesn't mean you can walk up and ask somebody, hey, will you be a mentor to me? Because that's a commitment of time and effort and energy that it has to come from somewhere.
By the way,
just
you're the one asking.
Exactly.
So you're going to someone to ask for their time and attention, and
that could, and probably, if that person's successful, that's time they're probably going to have to spend on you and not with their family and on other things that are important to them. So it's not a thing that you can get into lightly. And I think the way he had put it, which I liked a lot, was you need to just be around the person, be respectful, be present, get to know the person. And mentorship is something that evolves with a relationship, right? And I think it's, as opposed to coming in and saying, hey, will you just answer all of my questions for me, please?
They have to understand, this is earned, not given, right? You're not entitled to help.
No.
You have to earn it. So you're coming to someone who has sweated and suffered like so many years to learn all this. You don't get to go, can you answer my questions? This is not how this works. You are not entitled to anything. You're going to have to earn your way to those answers because otherwise you won't learn anyway because you're not putting the work. So you can't just, like I have a guy who just asked me questions on the nutrition and everything, like a list like this. I was like, that's why I'm starting at the group.
Yeah, because it's going to take me 2 hours.
Yeah, and you don't want to pay, fine, then figure it out.
Yeah.
But you can't ask for help without earning it. It's earned, not given.
Yeah, and because mentorship is a relationship, meaning it does have to go both ways. Like you do have to try, you do have to put in the work.
Do you know how much work I put in? Because again, like mentorship means the shit that I figure out.
Then you teach.
On my own, I have to teach you. So I put all that work and you just want the results and go like, give it to me.
Yeah.
No, even if it wasn't money, I'd be like, you're gonna have to do something because this is of value to me. That knowledge that I gain over years is of tremendous value. Why? Because I had to sweat and bleed so hard for it. It took time away from family, from my daughter, from whatever. This is basically what I do in life, so it took away from everything else. This has tremendous value to me that you want me to give you, and you do not care for it.
Yeah.
You did not earn it. You do not show any care, any value. You're not showing that you have any value for it. So no, I'm not going to give it to you because I find on my side to be tremendously disrespectful for you to ask for something that took so much and so long out of me, like it's stuff that I happen to find on the ground and it's like, hey, give me half.
Yes. And I think what's interesting is every single step along the way where you're not willing to make that step where you're going to be willing to be humble and learn something new and realize that the things in front of you, somebody paid a price to learn in one way or another.
That's the cue.
Until every step of the way, you will stop.
Right there, yeah.
Right there.
You're going to have to learn respect.
Until you get over that, and then you're going to be able to...
And it's going to be steps. As you said, you're going to have to get over it. So there will be steps. It won't be... And by the way, it's not smooth either on the way there. But you're going to have to earn respect of each belt as you go.
But if you're a white belt out there, white belt coach...
I love you.
God bless you.
I love you.
Find yourself a black belt.
Yeah. By the way, and don't spar with blue belts, spar with black belts. Yeah. Because...
It'll keep you interested.
And just try, you can't understand what they do, and that's okay, but try to look at what they do. And understand that you can't understand now, but somewhere in your body, it's being registered. It's being absorbed, albeit very slowly.
And we had talked today a little bit about how kind of you and I both kind of read in the same way, in that we read instead of looking at a word and reading the letters and knowing that word is there, it's almost deductively, like we acknowledge, at least when I read, I acknowledge that these 5 words are there in a row. And then I keep going, and then in the end, I know what is there, and I know only the few things that I care to learn.
Yeah, it's like reading the polyvagal theory. Yeah. Like sometimes there's some stuff I'm like, yeah, okay. Because they go into the name of everything. It's like reading an anatomical chart. No, I'm not going to remember the name of the muscles of the hand. I'm sorry, I'm not doing it. And so I have to translate what I read as I go so I can take the essence of it. And some of the technical stuff that you don't need to know, then fuck it, you can always go back to it. One day you might be interested in it, but in the meantime, get the knowledge out of it.
Yeah, and it's the same thing when you get to where you're working with a black belt, you're learning from someone, not all of it's useful to you now.
Every sparring session, get one thing.
Yeah.
Right? So don't get the triple axel loop with a reverse heel hook, right? Don't get that one. Yeah. But get like, how did he pass your guard? Where did he put his knee? Right? So it's the same thing as a coach. Like look at very great coaches, very complex movement or ideas or concept or stuff like that, and get one thing out of it. One thing where you go, hey, what was that? You look that, you go try it. Then you try it on your clients. Please don't hurt them. And you figure that thing out, right? Yeah. And then you go back to it and you go, okay, so, but there's something else I missed. Back to it and everything. So what does that mean? That means you're going to get choked 3,000 times.
Mm-hmm. When you make your way to being a black belt,
yes,
find yourself a white belt.
Yeah.
That's important.
Then give back.
Yeah.
You have to give back.
So we are on our way to a hockey game. We're about out of time.
Right. We're going to see my daughter play hockey because if she
Should
scores...
we tell them the bet?
Yes.
Right. So she has a hockey scrimmage tonight. And
yep.
I, unfortunately...
Yes.
She said she played defense, so I was like, well, she's not going to score very many goals then. So, but she said that she scored a goal last game when I was
yes, she
here.
did.
So I said, I have to attend, and if Yaya scores a goal, I have to do one of her entire choreographed dance routines from her dance
Maybe
class.
not the entire thing, but
Maybe
he has to learn
to find like a 30-second
dance.
version.
And now that it's on the podcast, that means we have to film it and release it. Yeah. So there you go.
So I've never ever felt more like rooting against
a
13-year-old girl in sports. But I'm like, don't you fucking dare.
I'm going to film it and we'll have to put it at the end of the podcast.
Yeah, this will probably be about the time with which I'm required to learn it. So damn it. Well, thanks for listening. We'll see you guys next week.
See you guys. Test.
I'm just going to dumb that down. Just go loud one more time.
Test.
Cool.
I won't scream.
Because I can always, that's the nice thing. As long as I don't clip, I can always turn it up later. I just can never.